Hello. This is your big fan right here. What is your name? Tammy, can I have a hug? I'll see you later.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tammy, where are you from?
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. I've heard of the place. I've never been there myself.
Tell them what you like to do.
This week at the Tiara Talk Show, we welcome back our Cast Member Corner segment, in which we speak to past or current cast members of the Disney theme parks from around the world. And I'm excited to welcome this week's Tiara Talk Show guest, actor and singer Robert Jones, to the show. Welcome, Robert.
Hi, Tammy. Thanks for having me.
It's so interesting because our listeners get to hear these really crazy stories of me watching my home videotapes and then me being able to talk to people who were on those home videotapes from like ages ago. And there was one in particular where a friend of my dad's was working at Disney at the time at MGM Studios, as it was formerly known, and we still call it that. And I think it was 2001, and our favorite show, really hands down, our favorite show was The Hunchback of Notre Dame, a musical spectacular. And for those who don't remember it, it was off of a New York City street in that theater, that open air theater, and we loved it. And then my dad found out his friend worked there at the theater and arranged a meet and greet at the end of the show with Phoebus, the sun god. And and we got to meet Phoebus, and he's been on our home videotapes and our photo albums, and he signed a card, which was the Quasimodo heart card. I still have it. And I think I randomly posted about it, and somebody recognized you and said, "This is Robert." And I was like, "Oh my God." And so Robert and I have been in touch for like 3 years now, and we finally are talking today. So this is great.
I know. I'm excited. This is exciting. I love to relive my Disney memories because they were so good.
It was such a different time back then, and especially with people not really having cameras around that time. So the fact that my family was lucky enough, my dad filmed all of this, was great. So when you saw the original clip, do you kind of remember that day at all? Or
I certainly do. I totally remember that day because, number one, no one ever asked for a meet and greet with Phoebus. They always wanted Esmeralda or Quasimodo. They never wanted Phoebus.
Oh.
I know.
We were up for anybody, to be quite honest, because my wide-eyed little 5-year-old self was like, "You guys are like gods to me." So I really didn't mind who we met.
Do you know what was really fun about that interview? What I really remember is that there was one of the theater employees blowing leaves out of the theater while we were talking.
Yes.
I remember that because I had to stop talking. And the other thing I remember is, well, I didn't remember, but I remember now that looking at the video is like, I should have totally been talking to you like I was Captain Phoebus and not like Rob, because I was talking to you like I was like Rob.
Because my mom goes, "Do you have any dance classes you go to?" Because I was a little ballet dancer at the time. And honestly, I still thought you were Phoebus. I kind of remember that encounter, and it didn't really question me. But you said something like, "Yes, I have taken a couple dance classes." And I was like, well, great. Phoebus, soldiers are supposed to at least have some type of balance. So I wouldn't blame him having ballet. It was just fun. And it's funny because I was looking at the home videotape like prior to us meeting, and my dad, he would always film "God Help the Outcasts" because that was our favorite song. And at the very end, you're on the other side of the stage, and Laura Lees, who I've interviewed before, who was your Esmeralda in that specific show, she shook my sister's hand. And it was funny because then years later, she and I got to meet in New York City. So I was like, this is just so cool. You guys are so darn talented, and we missed it when that show left. It was just like, why?
I think a lot of people missed it. I just think that Hunchback maybe is this is just my personal opinion, which means nothing really in the whole scheme of things, but I just think Hunchback might have been, it's probably their darkest movie they ever put out and their darkest show they've ever had in the parks. And I think for a lot of kids, it wasn't entertaining like Beauty and the Beast or the Muppets, or, that's what I feel. I just feel it was a little dark for the Disney parks. I
Yes.
loved it, and I love performing in it, but just an opinion. That's all.
But we will mention that they did cut Hellfire from the show. I don't even think it
Yes,
was a
they
part of the
did.
original show, was it?
No, I wasn't part of the original cast of Hunchback, so I'm not sure.
When did you come in?
They play a little bit of it in the they played a little bit of it, didn't they, in the intro, yeah.
When did you come into the show? What year?
I came into the show in, I think it was 90. I think it was 19. No. I'm sorry. I'm in the wrong time when I was at Disney. Because I was there two different time periods. So I think it was I thought it was 2000 that I came to this show. Yeah, because when I was hired, I have kind of a story, if I can get off
Sure, yeah, please.
for just a little bit. So I went down on the college program in 1987. I could be off by a year. And then I auditioned for entertainment, and I got into characters. So I did do my share of fur, which means the characters in costume. But I really soon I got cast in the 20th anniversary parade in as my own self. And then I did the Christmas show in front of the castle as my own self. And then, so I digress. We can get back to that later. But I think, okay, now I'm off topic. I'm sorry. What was our original question? Okay, you're
no.
a lot with me, probably.
No. I was just asking, like, I know the show started in 96 and it ended in 2002, so it had a short run. I was just wondering, like, time placement when you kind of were brought in.
Oh, I was brought in towards the end, but I left the show before it ended.
Okay,
it had to be. I think it was 2000 when I came into the show.
And you said you started as a cast member around 1990 in DCP, Disney College Program, or was it earlier than that?
No, as a cast. Oh, I'm much older than that, Tammy. Oh my gosh,
I would never think that.
I started in the college program in 1987, I think it was. Yeah, and I did monorails. I got to drive the monorails and load people.
Gosh.
I know. Yeah, and then I auditioned for entertainment, and then I got cast to do. What did I do first? The Muppet Show. The original Muppet Show.
Oh, the one where it was in place of Voyage of the Little Mermaid. Okay, Here come the Muppets.
Yep. And I'll tell you a funny story about that. And I was Fozzie Bear in the Muppet Show. And one day I was fearless in that big, huge costume. And I would do cartwheels and I would do somersaults, and because there were places where it could be done. And one day I did a somersault in Fozzie Bear, and I left his ear laying on the stage. And that's when they told me I could never do somersaults in Fozzie Bear again.
Oh no! I never got a chance to see that show. I came to the parks around 97, so I missed that. But oh my gosh, did I love Voyage of the Little Mermaid? And you were the first Prince Eric, right?
I was. There were 3 of us that learned it right away. But I was fortunate enough to get to do the publicity for it with Leanza Cornett, who I rest in peace. I think about her a lot.
We were talking about her. We were messaging because I didn't realize you were in the publicity photos until you told me, and I was like, oh my gosh, because Leanza's been on the show and she had wonderful stories. So tell me about working with her.
Oh, she was like the utmost professional. She sort of kept to herself a little bit, but when she wanted to cut up, she would come out in the green room and cut up with all of us. She was just amazing, and I was so proud. I have the night that she won Miss America, I was working for Opryland USA, but I got food poisoning that morning. I had food poisoning that morning, so I was home sicker than a dog. Oh my gosh, when she won Miss America, I'm like, I couldn't believe it. She was a perfect Miss America, but I got to see her once during her reign. She came through San Antonio, Texas, which is another story. and I got to hang out with her for a night, and it was fantastic. But Leanza was great with the cast. She was like spot on. She never had a bad vocal moment. She looked like Ariel. She was amazing. She was, in my opinion, the quintessential Ariel.
I love the video footage that there is of her performing it. I wish somebody had a full performance of it online, but again, that was like 92
Right.
when the show came out. How long did you do your run with her during her entire time, or?
I did my run until, well, through 1991, and then I was doing some other auditions. I wanted to, because at that point I hadn't sung live with Disney.
Yes,
I had auditioned.
yeah.
I had auditioned for talent roles. Talent roles are the roles that sing or speak live or dance live.
Mm-hmm.
So like dance on a stage live. So I was auditioning, and then Opryland USA came through Orlando, and they auditioned, and they were getting ready to open. I mean, Opryland USA was based out of Nashville, Tennessee. It was a theme park. And then, but they were getting ready to open a park called Fiesta Texas in San Antonio, Texas. And it was built in an old rock quarry. It was a really cool park. So I auditioned, and Joe Gerald, who was the casting director, said, are you willing to move to San Antonio? And I'm like, yeah, because I knew Opryland. The difference between Opryland and Disney was Opryland, all the shows were live vocals, live orchestra, live dancers. There was nothing lip sync. There was no canned music or anything. So I knew that was kind of my next step, because I really wanted to sing live, because I consider myself a singer more than I do a dancer, a lot more. And so I got hired, and I left in 91 after the show. Did the show open in 90? Mermaid, do you remember?
92 is when it opened, I believe.
Then I was there in 92. I left. I was probably, because I did all of the rehearsals to open the show. Sorry, my time frames are rusty at best. But I did all the rehearsals to open the show as Eric, and I must have left fall of 92. Nothing I've ever done has made me rich or famous, but I'll tell you what, the memories will never go away. Ever.
Do you ever have, I read this all the time, people say they have dreams that they have to run on and do a show, and it's like that nightmare of, do I remember it? Do you have those?
Oh yes, I have this reoccurring nightmare that I'm doing, and I don't even know what show it is. I have no idea, but I have a million costume changes in it. Okay, I'm over exaggerating. I have a few costume changes in it, but there's this one costume change in particular that I got so comfortable with. I'm just like, okay, well, I'll just get ready for it when I'm ready. And by then I'm late getting on stage. I'm like, Rob, pull it together.
When was your first official singing role for Disney? What show was that?
Well, I had left the characters at Disney to go to Opryland USA, and then I worked on Norwegian Cruise Lines, and then I was living in Nashville, Tennessee, and I saw in the paper that Disney was coming through to audition. Well, I had auditioned. They used to call me in when I was a character. I at least 12 times, at least 12, with Ronnie Rodriguez as the casting director. And every time we went in to audition for a sub role, they auditioned me for Voices of Liberty, and they auditioned me for Gaston, and they auditioned me for a couple other things, HooptyDo. And Ronnie was just like, Robert, you're just not quite ready. You're just not quite ready. And I'm like, trust me, Ronnie, I'm ready. but so I left, and I got some more experience. And then I said that Disney was coming through Nashville, and the casting director had changed from Ronnie Rodriguez to Russ Jordan. So Russ Jordan came through, and I told myself, I knew how it was not very common for a character role to be transferred to an equity role, to a singer-dancer role. So I took all my Disney that I did off of my resume, 100% of it. And I went in with just the other things I did. And I sang my audition for Russ Jordan in Nashville, and he handed me this piece of paper that said, hey, can you sing this? And sure enough, it was right from the moment when I met her, saw her, it was Gaston. And I'm like, oh, I know this. And I sang it, and he goes, how soon can you move to Orlando? I literally broke down in tears.
That's
Because
amazing.
besides auditioning while I was internal with Disney, I had auditioned at least a dozen times before that when I was younger. He wanted me to do Beauty and the Beast, and that's what he told me. And then I didn't get a contract, and I didn't get a contract in the mail. And then they called me, wanted me to go on one of the Disney cruise lines, the pirate show.
Yes, I remember. Show. Yes, I heard about that.
And I auditioned for that over the phone. And I did the best I could. But then finally they said, well, we want you to go to Hunchback of Notre Dame. So I'm like, fine. So I got down there. And then right before I left to come down to Disney, they said, well, we're going to split your contract and do 2 days of Hunchback and 3 days at Beauty and the Beast. And so that's what I did. And Tammy, I grew up in a small town of 200. I was a very overweight child who loved to sing. There were no dance classes. There was anywhere in the 70s and 80s. I'm 53 now, so I'm old as dirt. But and for me to achieve working at Disney, that was a huge deal for me. And I just want to say, and for any of you that are young that listen to this, don't give up. Keep auditioning. Just keep auditioning. It took me almost 24 times before I finally got a singing role at Disney, and just keep auditioning. And when someone tells you can't, you try to make yourself that much better to prove that you can.
I'm a huge HooptyDo fan through and through. So when I saw your pictures, you were posting some pictures of you in the show. I was like, oh my gosh, Robert was in the show too. Did you learn all 3 guy roles, or were you only 2 of them?
No, they didn't think I was funny enough. That's okay. I didn't have to learn 6 bits. But no, I was cast, like I said, to do Phoebus and Gaston. I was doing 2 days and 3 days, and then all of a sudden, like less than 6 months when I was down there, they wanted to cross-train me to do Johnny Ringo. Johnny Ringo's the dancer, and HooptyDo is just 6 people. Oh, you know that, but HooptyDo is just 6 people. So 3 females, 3 males, 2-piece band, and then all of the, of course, the people that make the show, really. The people make the show that come to it. But so I learned Johnny Ringo, and then right away they turned around and wanted me to learn Jim Handy. So I was able to do 4 roles at Disney that I loved every one of them. I just loved it. And HooptyDo was so great because even though it was scripted, there was a lot of improv. You had to have some comedic timing. You had to there was audience participation. So you were out in the audience and you were talking to people, and it was great. HooptyDo was a great experience.
HooptyDo is like one of those rare theater experiences where anything can happen, anything goes, right? Mm. So what was one of the craziest HooptyDo nights for you?
We were doing and I don't even remember what country it was, but let me see. Oh, I have 2 of them, but this one, we asked people where they were from. So it was states and countries is what it was. States and countries. And someone said they were from Alabama, and I answered with Yoko-son, Ane-san. And I'm like, that's Japan. I sang Japan for someone from Alabama. Okay, so that might not be that funny, but
oh my gosh.
But when I left Disney, I didn't remember that I had ordered some reprints of my headshots, which were old, by the way. I ordered some reprints, and they showed up after I had already moved from Orlando. And I used to go back to Disney at least twice a year to see them. And we went to HooptyDo one night, and one of the performers goes, Rob, she goes, you have no idea. Your headshots have been posted all over Fort Wilderness in green rooms and in break rooms. And
Those are the best moments because like that's really the magic of it. But I just loved Hoop, and my mom is a huge fan of the Beauty and the Beast show. So we it's always a requirement to see it, and I love it for the costumes. I love those pink dresses. But she loves Gaston. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention this character because my mom is listening. So tell me a little bit about, Gaston, because his character is probably the only one that can really kind of play in the show since it's kind of so strict in the structure of the story.
Yeah, they were really, really, the directors were really positive about you kind of making Gaston your own, Now, I mean, I don't know if I was a good Gaston. I can sing the role, but I loved singing the role. I loved getting to go out on stage every morning and warm up with the microphone and they'd play part of the track where I would sing, and yeah, it was good. It was a good morning when you went out on stage and you sang the mob song and you could hit that high note. That was a good morning. But I'll tell you a story before everything went down with 9/11 and the towers. So when I was hired and I did all 3 shows, Hunchback, Beauty and the Beast, and HooptyDo, it was on an equity scale. So Hunchback and Beauty and the Beast were the same. It was per show equaled so many hours to equal an 8-hour day. So there was a time when I would be scheduled at Hunchback and the Beauty and the Beast stage would call and they'd be like, we need Gaston for the rest of the day. So I would do a show at Hunchback or 2 shows at Hunchback, and then I'd walk over, because it's in the same park, to Beauty and the Beast, and I get into costume and I do the rest of the shows there, or most of the rest of the shows there. And then HooptyDo would call and say, hey, we need a Johnny Ringo or we need a Jim Handy tonight. So I would get out of costume and go in my car and drive to Fort Wilderness, and I would do HooptyDo. But so the Hunchback and Beauty and the Beast were considered 8-hour shifts. The HooptyDo was considered a 10-hour shift because the show is longer. You do fewer shows, but the show's longer. So because of Actors Equity, if they would change your schedule within I think it was a 24-hour period. I think I could be wrong, but so you would get your original 8 hours where you were scheduled, and then you would get an additional 8 hours of where you went to. So there would be days where I went to all 3 shows, and I would get 8 hours of my original shift at Hunchback, and 8 hours overtime at Beauty and the Beast because they changed my shift, and 10 hours triple time because they called me to HooptyDo before my shift was over at Beauty and the Beast.
Good Lord. How were you able to sustain 3 different shows? Like, I would be, I guess it's fight or flight, basically.
I loved it, Tammy. I loved being able to put myself into 3 different characters in a day. There would be people that would come to HooptyDo that said, I'd be out in the audience and they'd be like, we saw you at Beauty and the Beast today. Or we saw you, and I'm like, oh, I don't think it was me. I relished my time I worked at Disney. Some really fun things happened. Some really not so fun things. I will tell you, when I was a character, and I've never told anybody this, but when I was a character, I obviously at one time characters were not paid quite as much. Weren't paid that well, and I was a new character. And there was a while I slept in my car. Yeah. And it's not, and I'm not saying anything bad about Disney. I'm not, because I love my job, and I would have slept on a park bench to work there.
It's a difficult business down there, and even with COVID added on top of that, it's even worse. So since you mentioned that, I would like to mention to our listeners, there are tons of cast member food banks. So if you are looking to support the wonderful people. It's not just entertainers, it's also people who work in transportation and in the theme parks themselves as maintenance directors or custodians, whatever. Definitely look online to see if you can help support, if you can in any way, because it does mean the world to them. And as I tell everybody, they always ask, why do you keep going down? And I said, it is because the magic, and the magic is the cast members, no doubt about it.
Oh, 100%. You know, something that to this day, I work in the restaurant industry, and to this day, Disney told us, one of their rules was, if you see a family taking a picture, odds are mom or dad aren't in it, so offer to take it for them. And sure as get out, it works. It transfers into what I do today. I always offer to take pictures for people, because always there's someone who's being left out of the picture.
Was there ever a show that you would have loved to have been in, or maybe after your time there?
Oh, I wish I was a great dancer. I really do. Because when I was there the first time, I would have loved to have been a world dancer.
What about the sword for Phoebus? Because there is like a kind of like a fight scene between Esmeralda and Phoebus.
There is. I had to learn that, and it was good. Laura Lees was who I learned Hunchback with. Laura Lees, who you mentioned earlier, and she was so great. But she was awesome to work with. And I worked with Michelle Perales and a couple other Esmeraldas. But no, the sword fight was fine. It was fine. It was a heavy sword, but it was, yeah. No, I loved it.
What was one of those instances where maybe a costume malfunction or a wig malfunction or a prop malfunction happened on stage, and you kind of had to use and be on your toes for how to kind of move forward with the show, because you got to keep going unless there's an emergency where somebody gets hurt, right?
So I was working at Opryland USA in Nashville, Tennessee, and we did this football. It was a show called For Me and My Gal. It was all old music, and there was one point where I had a girl who wasn't treating well, and she was like had the upper hand, and she would push me and I'd do a somersault on the stage, and I'd end with my legs like in a wide, and sitting on my butt, and I didn't realize at the time, but the audience was laughing. I'm like, what? Maybe they laughed because it was funny. I don't know, but my pants had ripped all the way through to the waistline when I did that somersault. They ripped all the way through, and I'm like, only me. It would only happen to me. It speaks for itself when I talk about it, like with tables with kids and things like that. You know, if it's a birthday of a little kid, I always say, hey, do you like Disney? And of course they're always like, yes. I said, who's your favorite character? And then I'm like, you know what? I'm really good friends with her, or I'm really good friends with him. And then I say, I used to work there, and blah, blah. It's great. It's great. I don't know how much more performing I'll get to do in the rest of my life, but what I did at Disney, I will never look back on. I mean, I'll never forget it. It was amazing.
And you said that you've moved on from performing and you're now running a restaurant. So how did
well,
that?
I'm not running a restaurant, but I work for two different restaurants, and
cool.
And it's a small town in La Crosse. It's a very small community. Well, I'll tell you one more story.
Sure, yeah.
So when I moved to La Crosse, I digress. I'm going to digress after this, but I moved here with an ex, and moved here with someone who is now my ex, and we started a performing group in town, an adult performing group called the Grand River Singers. And we had a group of anywhere from 14 to 16 for 8 years. And in that time, we took them to both Disney parks, both sides of the oceans, both sides of the United States. And we also got to do a reality show for VH1 called Off Pitch. It was a show about, not that we were necessarily off pitch in the group, because we had really great performers in our group. La Crosse, Wisconsin is just for some reason is a breeding ground of really great performers. I work with high school show choirs, and there's so much talent that stays in this town. It's not even funny. I never expected to meet you 20 years later, or however many years it was when you posted the video. I never expected it. I never had a video of Hunchback with me in it.
You're kidding.
Mm-mm.
Oh.
No, never. I've never had one. And I'll tell you that I felt so proud of what I did at Disney the day that you posted that.
Oh, I had to.
And it was Andrea Canny. It was Andrea Canny who connected you with me.
That's right. I was trying to remember because this was like 4 years ago that I posted it. I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
I was trying to look for my original post. I couldn't find it, but I had it saved on my computer, the video, and again, I'm so glad she did. Thank you, Andrea. She's always awesome.
She's amazing.
She's connected me to some people too, which is great. I just love being able to reconnect with people over the years. So this has been such an honor. And before we end, I have 3 Disney themed questions I asked to all of my guests, and I call them the Fab 3. So we'll start with the Donald question, which is, as a child, what Disney film was one of your favorites to see in the movie theater?
I would say Cinderella.
And our Goofy question, what Disney character do you think would be your best friend if you met them in person?
Oh, Esmeralda. She'd be my best friend.
She would fight for you to the end. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And our Mickey question, if I asked you to name any Disney song at this very moment, what immediately comes to mind?
Beauty and the Beast.
And, before we officially end, since this is Cast Member Corner, I do always ask our cast members if they could sum up their experience working at the theme parks with one word. What would that be?
Brilliant.
What a woman.